Good morning and welcome to Norcal APEX Accelerator's webinar, covering federal contracting certifications for your small business. My name is Amanda Anderson. I'm the program coordinator for Norcal APEX Accelerator, and today I'm joined by our fantastic procurement specialist, Thomas Burns. But before we go into the real meat and potatoes of this presentation, I do want to let you know a little bit about Norcal APEX Accelerator and how the nationwide network of APEX accelerators can help you with government contracting. The APEX Accelerator Network is a federally funded, federally mandated network of centers that are funded to provide small businesses just like yours with education and training to help you perform and succeed in government contracting. Now, as we are federally funded and federally mandated, we have over 96 APEX Accelerator Centers nationwide that are funded to help businesses just like yours with anything related to government contracting. From your initial certifications and registrations, like we're going to be talking about today, to helping you bid on and perform on government contracts once you win your first one. But how exactly does that assistance work? What does that assistance look like? Well, at Norcal APEX Accelerator, we're able to offer our no-cost government contracting assistance to the 15 Northern California counties that you see on your screen. And we offer assistance through three main pillars. First, our one-on-one counseling, where once you are connected with us and are onboarded as a client, we're able to pair you with a procurement specialist on our team, just like Thomas Burns, who can sit down with you one-on-one over Zoom and help you with anything regarding government contracting, from helping you fill out that tricky SAM registration, getting your UEIs and all of those different codes in order, as well as helping you review solicitations you want to bid on. And we can even help you after you win your first bid, making sure all those I's are dotted, those T's are crossed when you're turning in your compliance paperwork. Another huge benefit of being onboarded as a client with us is our custom bid matching software, which, with the help of your APEX Accelerator counselor, can help you find opportunities that are relevant to you by sitting down with your counselor and defining what kind of criteria you're looking for in a good solicitation. Maybe that's the geographic location you can perform the work in. Or maybe you're working on something so innovative that the product name itself or the innovation name would be in the solicitation that you're looking for. Our procurement specialists sit down with you and help you define all of these criteria, and we put them into a software that scans both federal, state, and local procurement sites for opportunities that are relevant to your business. And then it emails them directly to you. It can take a lot of the time and tediousness out of finding these opportunities, but fine-tuned criteria is key, and that's where the counselors can really, really help. And finally, our third resource is actually one you're taking advantage of today. We put on many different webinars and in-person workshops throughout the year, covering introductory topics like your first certifications and registrations, to more advanced topics like learning how to prepare your business if your contract's terminated at a federal level, or helping you navigate uncertainty when the regulations are kind of up in the air and being changed. In addition to our webinars and workshops, we maintain a robust website of links and resources at all levels of contracting, from local, state, and federal, all available to you at absolutely no cost, no matter if you're in our service area or not. So you are always welcome to join our webinars, you're welcome to join our in-person events, and you are always welcome to browse our website and use it as a resource, as a tool for your business to support your government contracting success. But if you are looking for more in-depth help, more resources as well, I do recommend signing up with your local APEX Accelerator Center. If that's us, please do visit our website, apexnorcal.org/join. But if you are outside of our 15 county service area, there is no worries because, again, we are a nationwide network. So you'll be getting that link in the slide deck once it's provided to you in a week, and you'll be able to find your local Apex Accelerator Center and connect with them to take advantage of all of these no cost assistance programs. So, with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to Thomas to begin the presentation for today.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning again, Amanda, and thank you for the introduction. So let's jump right into this webinar today. So here we're looking at our agenda. I'm going to do my best to focus on the effort versus reward when doing business with the federal government. Next, we're going to talk about federal certifications in a kind of like a good detailed overview. Won't be able to dig too deep into the weeds about how to qualify for each certification. However, the information provided will really help you understand whether or not you definitely qualify and what to do if you want to get more information. And then sam.gov, and as a side note, usaspending.gov. These federal websites are the real backbone of starting the process of understanding uh, the federal landscape when it comes to certifications and the different solicitations that are posted, especially when it comes to sole source and set aside contracts, which I'll go into more. So those are the opportunities, and then the challenges, of course, are everything from the primes and the contracting officers and the things that's going on in 2025. So I'll do my best to touch on all of these as we also educate you on the certifications process and programs. Okay, let's see. Uh-oh, hold on. Okay, my mouse is moving a little slowly. All right. First slide. Why do business with the federal government? So I'm sure most of the people on this webinar are already aware of the spending power of the federal government, right? It's the largest purchaser of products and services throughout the world, combined. When you look at the amount of money that our nation spends on products and services. This is a snapshot. I had gotten this information from one of the newsletters that was put out by the Biden-Harris administration back in 2024. You can see the link, and all of the links should work very well, take you directly to where I was able to gather this information. The information here just kind of gives you a really good overview out of how the $637 billion was spent when it comes to um, the minority and racial categories as how the federal government creates it, right? And so you can see the $78 billion. It says the 8A program, but I also believe, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that also includes the small disadvantaged business. If you don't know what that is, I'll go into more details later on. But it's the SDB self-certification classification. And so that 5% is they generated 12% of the uh, what they were goal was, right? The goal was 5, they got 12%, 78 billion. The woman-owned small business, they hit 31 billion, didn't hit 5, but very close. HubZone, I'll go into more details if you're not sure what that is. They only needed 3% is the goal. They hit 17 billion. And small service disabled veteran owned small business. The goal is 5%. They got a little bit over with 32.8 billion. So, of course, these are huge numbers, which means that yes, the government is doing their part in working with these certifications. And so there is definitely a reason to want to be a part of this opportunity. Okay, here we go. This is just another breakdown, right? A little bit more detail. For example, here we list the um, economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business. That's a it's a different type of woman-owned small business certification. I'll go into more details as we get into it. Also, the VOSB. So if you're a veteran but not service disabled, they have a certification for veterans, just a VOSB. And here we see the small business set aside again. I believe that also includes the 8A and the S small disadvantaged business, which is a self-certification. Okay. Here's where I really wanted to spend a little bit of time because I did the research by simply, going to different websites and really trying to understand what has happened or happening within 2025. So as you can see, um, these agencies listed here were all received an A plus. Now, I don't know who graded them. I have an assumption that they graded themselves, but be that as it may, what they're saying here is, for example, the SBA, they not only reached their goals, but they probably achieved them or overachieved when it comes to spending their budget with the different federal certifications, right? As all of these did. So they did a really great job in 2024 of overachieving when it comes to spending their budget with the small business community. However, as of 2025 and the new administration, as you all are aware, there's been major upheavals. And so this is my attempt to show you what has happened when it comes to staff reductions. Now, the challenge is I don't know where these reductions take place within these agencies. I'm assuming contracting wasn't affected too much, but I'm just not sure. There's no way to really know at this time. As we learn more, we can share more. But as you can see, the SBA, they lost 40% of their staff. How will that affect their ability to be an A plus agency again? Just do not know. Department of Agriculture, 15% staff reduction. Department of Housing, HUD, they lost more than half, 50% of their staff. Um, that tells you that it's their ability to do or replicate what they did last year and the year before is really going to be affected. Department of Interior, 25% of their staff. Department of Homeland Security. The reason I put unclear is because I didn't want to uh, put figures here when I'm really just not sure. So if I'm unclear, I left it like alone. National Science Foundation, 50% of their staff have been either they quit, retired, or just been terminated. GSA, this one is a little bit different because the rumor is that many of these agencies that you see, their staff reduction will leave them to use GSA to be the purchasing arm for them. So, as an example, instead of HUD having its own contracting officers, they're going to have to utilize GSA to purchase things for them on their behalf, which means they could grow their staff. But as of this writing, I'm just not sure what really is happening. Department of Commerce, 20%. Not clear about the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and Office of Personnel Management. They lost 75% of their staff. So as you can see, these are huge changes, and there's no way to know for certain just how it's going to affect the small business community's ability to really do business with these agencies moving forward. At the same time, they're still spending money. So if they're still spending money, then that is an opportunity. But it just where and with who is still we don't know. I'll get into how we can learn about that moving forward. Okay. So we jump into the certification part, right? I'm assuming the people on this call, on this webinar, are here because they really want to just determine if it's worth their time and energy to get certified, or if you are certified but have been having major challenges as to how to um, benefit from your certification, i.e., win contracts utilizing that certification. Hopefully, I can provide more insight as we get deeper into this webinar. Okay, let's jump into it. So these are the certifications that are available through the federal government. As I mentioned, the SDB, Small Disadvantaged Business, that is the one that is self-certifying, meaning when you register your entity in SAM, there is a section where you basically state, they take it, they trust you. You basically state, do you qualify based on your NEX codes and the small business standards? I'll get into more details because I have a few stories I want to share to kind of help you understand this process. Next one is, as I mentioned before, there's one for veterans, the VOSB. All of these others you have to apply. These are not self-certifying certifications. You have to go through an application process. All right. So let's get into the SDB. Here is how you are eligible. This link on the second bullet where it talks about the size standards. This is a great tool to really help you understand if you qualify. So let me give you a little bit of a backstory. Before, on average, every single NEX code is different because it's based on industries. So you have everything from farming all the way to IT, and all of the service industries have their own NEX code. Back in early or late 2023, the Biden administration made a change to the size standards based on NEX codes. On average, they increased from 100 employees to 500 employees. What that meant is, instead of them, well, let me say it this way. What that meant was it greatly increased the number of small businesses that can be identified as, quote, small business, because now you have firms that have 400 employees that are considered small business, regardless of the dollar amount. One of my examples that I wanted to share with you is one of my clients. I'm not going to mention the name or the industry, other than to say they're in the manufacturing business. They have 300 employees. They generate over $1 billion in revenue. and yet they are, by the new standards, considered a small business. Um, on a personal note, I've been a small business owner, started in 2000 all the way up to 2017 before I ended up becoming a member of the Norcal PTAC, now Apex Accelerator community. But yeah, it's very difficult to compete as a traditional small business, which would be on average less than 100 employees, when the standard now is 500. That's just a idea of what we're up against when we talk about the length and size of what a small business is. Average income, you cannot exceed $350,000 on a personal average income. Your net worth less than 750,000, and you can't own more than 6 million in assets. So I'm assuming that's, looking at all of your, your home, cars, all of your assets. Here are the benefits. Like as I said before, you're self-registering yourself within the SAM system. The preferences are the same as those businesses that are part of the AA program, which are sole source and set asides. You also have the opportunity for mentor protege programs, which I'll get into a little bit more later on. Let's see. Okay. Veteran owned small business. Here are the eligibilities. As you can see, you definitely have to have your DD 214. You must own 51% of that business, must be owned and controlled by the veteran or veterans. This becomes an issue several times. I've had clients where they were not able to qualify for the VOSB or the SDVOSB simply because the way they set up their corporation or their LLC, the veteran was not the majority owner. And that's a real stickler for the federal government. Essentially, when they first created these programs, what ended up happening? They found a lot of times there was fraud from the standpoint of a company that did not qualify would partner with a veteran just in name only to get the certification. And so the veteran was not truly benefiting from the certification, but the company that had brought them in as a partner was really benefiting from it. And that's just not in the spirit of how they and why they created these certifications. So through the application process, there is a major issue, and you have to overcome it with enough paperwork to prove you truly are 51% owner or more of that business. And let's look at the benefits. So again, sole source and set aside contracts. Quick explanation. A sole source contract is one where you are able to convince or prove or show the contracting officer for that agency that there is extremely that they do need your product or service, but that there's very little to no competition, meaning you have a product or service that's so unique to the needs of that agency that there's no reason to put it up for competition among other companies because it just doesn't exist. It's that much of a unique product or service. And so it's called a sole source. They're only identifying you and they're awarding you the contract. Set aside contracts are when the contracting officer says, we need landscaping services, as an example, right? Could be anything, but I'm just picking on landscaping. They make a determination that they want to award the contract to a woman-owned small business only. So it's a set aside just for women-owned small business, and only they can compete for that contract. You still have to compete, but you're only competing against other WOSBs. Okay, and it shows you the limits. It can't be over $250,000. No more. At least two businesses must put in a bid, though. And it's talking about the 7% minimum of its annual contracting dollars. The question that I am not 100% certain on at this moment is, for the VOSB, are there other agencies that are actively trying to do business with VOSBs other than the VA? And I would say I'm unclear on that answer right this minute. Um, there's an easy way to find that out, and that is utilizing SAM and USA spending. I'll have an opportunity to get a little bit more into that, but those two resources will answer your questions for you. Let's go to the next one. Oh, okay, it's such a touchy mouse. Um, SDVOSB. So where the VOSB is definitely utilized heavily within the VA, I know the SDVOSB is the same, but other agencies definitely do purchase from SDVOSBs. I do know that for a fact. The same scenario exists in terms of eligibility and benefits as the VOSB. The biggest difference here is this is for service connected um, veterans, and you have to prove that. I forgot the name of the form, but those who are service connected know what I'm talking about. There's an actual form that is just as official as the DD 214 for service connected veterans. And again, everything here is pretty much the same. You have to show that the veteran operates the business, is 51% owner, and involved in the daily operations. Okay. Woman-owned small business. Again, you got to be 51% owned. This comes up a lot with couples, um, husband and wife. They operate their company. They want to go after the WOSB, but it's I've seen this happen with a lot of my clients. They found it was difficult to prove that the wife is actually 51% owner, not just 50%, and that the wife actually manages day-to-day operations and is intricately part of the long-term decisions. And the application process is challenging because you have to prove that. And it's just what it is. They want to make sure that truly women-owned small businesses are receiving this certification. There's another issue with the woman-owned small business certification, and one of them is the different NEX codes. Not all of the NEX codes that exist are the goal of the SBA is to provide certifications as woman-owned small business for those industries that are underrepresented from women-owned small businesses. And so it's a fairly long list, but still there are certain NEX codes that are just not represented. So it's important to check to make sure your NEX code is one of those that's eligible. And again, the main opportunity here is set asides and sole source contracts. Also, the opportunity to be a sub with a prime where the contracting officer for that agency that put out that solicitation has mandated that the prime must work with um, woman-owned small businesses. And this one is the economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business. And it's an extra layer of, in my personal opinion, it's an extra layer of application challenges because now you also have to show your net worth and making sure you meet these goals of having no less than 850,000, 400,000 for each woman owner, and they it's just a higher level of process to be qualified as an ED. And the from my own perspective, in terms of what I've been looking at over the last 5, 6 years, is it does not translate into more opportunities for women-owned small businesses to go out and apply for the EDWOSB. In my personal opinion, I think it would be just as beneficial to go and apply for the WOSB versus the EDWOSB simply because I don't see even more opportunities on SAM.gov or in USA Spending for EDWOSBs. And again, the same benefits do apply. Set aside contracts, being having the ability to be a subcontractor to primes, and sole source opportunities when they are when that opportunity is there. Okay, the 8A. The 8A is a little different, and we're going to spend a little bit more time on the 8A because it's more of a program versus a certification. As you can see, it's a 9-year program. The overall goal of this is to turn a small business into a large company so that at the end of 9 years, you've generated enough revenue from winning so many contracts with the federal government that you are on a whole new different level of business. And um, the goal of making that happen and being able to record and let the business community know how successful this program is very difficult. It's kind of difficult to get enough of information to see how many 8A, how many companies that generate the 8A, and at that 9 years, where are they? It's kind of difficult to get all that information, but that is the overall goal, is to really take you to a whole different level of in your company. The eligibility, as it's stated here again, this one is mostly based on social and economic disadvantages. So when it was first created, I want to say back in 68, 70, it was mostly focused on just minority status. And then over time, it evolved, and it also applies for socially and economically disadvantaged individuals who start companies. Um, this one is also a little different, where the SDVOSB, the VOSB, and the woman-owned small business. You could start your company, let's say 6 months ago, and apply. With the 8A, they really want you to show some track record of success before you are eligible to apply for the 8A program. So here it's talking about at least 2 years. But overall, you want to show some level of success. Here are the benefits. I would point out on the bullet where it talks about the mentor protege program. This is a little different from the other certifications in that while you can go after the mentor protege program with the DoD, the SBA really does put a more effort into helping 8A firms build partnerships with larger prime companies. A quick example would be Northrop Grumman. That's just one of the larger primes that the DoD and the SBA make an effort to help their 8A firms build relationships with Northrop Grumman for business opportunities. Also, the 8A program has what's called a business opportunity specialist. Their job is to help all of the 8A firms within their district or region. Right here in Northern California, we have an 8A office located right here in San Francisco. If you're out of Sacramento, they have another 8A. LA, there's regions throughout the United States, and each 8 SBA office has these business opportunity specialists whose job is to help the 8A firms win contracts over the 9-year period. Now, we were talking about how the SBA has been affected. I believe the stats showed that they had lost 40% of their staff. How does that affect the SBA's ability to provide this service? Um, on a personal level, I haven't taken the time and haven't had the opportunity to really dig into that question with the SBA. But if there's anybody who's considering the 8A program, that should be one of the questions you direct to the SBA immediately, right? They can let you know, is this still a program within their ability to provide this kind of level of service that they used to? Um, and there'll be an opportunity to ask more questions. But yeah, this is the benefits here. We talk about the joint ventures. Um, I'm not sure about the qualified to receive federal surplus property. I I don't know a lot about that program or the Empowered to Grow program, but I will encourage you to reach out to the SBA for more information. All right, the Hub Zone. This is the certification program that gets very little attention, unfortunately. This also was one of the original certification programs that came out of the 60s. It was essentially created because of what we call redlining, right? It's a term that relates to the government basically telling developers and banks these communities um, automatically, because of their minorities status and the level of minorities in a certain community, were treated differently. They were discriminated against and quote underutilized. So when they decided to change the effects of those programs, the hub zone's goal is to help businesses that are living in those communities and their employees. That's a really big thing here. It's not just the business owner and that business, but their employees must be part of that community. That's what the hub zone is for. Let me go to the next slide and talk about the eligibility. This, unfortunately, is one of those uh, application programs that is a little bit complicated. As you can see on one of the bullets here, 35% of the employees must live in a hub zone. That could be a challenge, or it could be not a challenge, depending on the size of your company. right? If your company is only 5 or 6 people and they all live within the hub zone, that's fairly easy. But if your company is 10, 15 employees, but they live all over the place, right? You might not be able to qualify simply because your employees, at least 35% of them, do not live in a hub zone. And then you have to prove all this. So you have to provide documentation and paperwork showing that your employees do live in a hub zone. Um, as you can imagine, as a business owner, that can be a little bit of a challenge to gather up all that documentation, but that is what's required to put in an application for the Hub Zone program. Let's talk about the benefits real quick. So they also have the set asides for Hub Zone firms. They have the 10% price evaluation preference. What that means is if I'm a regular, let's say I'm just a normal company and I'm bidding on a construction project of $400,000. The Hub Zone firm also bids at $400,000. The Hub Zone would win because of the 10% price evaluation preference, meaning that 400,000, that 10% you're going to get a discount on, which means your bid is going to be 10% lower. So 10% of 400,000 is whatever that number is. And so your bid comes in lower, you are the low bid, you win, but they pay you at the 400,000 level. So that is a opportunity to be more competitive when you submit your bids on an RFP. It's one of the unique things that the Hub Zone has that the other certifications do not have. Also, Hub Zones can be a part of uh, set asides, sole source, and subcontracting opportunities. All right, so had a while, so let's take some questions.
Absolutely. And we have one right at the end of Hub Zone. So for the Hub Zone certification, is there a minimum number of employees your business has to have to qualify?
No, one is, yeah, one is that magic number. So,
Awesome. And then we had a couple of questions from a couple of folks, both in chat and in the Q&A, asking about how to pick which ones to go for. So I'd love to kind of have a little discussion. First, let's start with like WOSB, economically disadvantaged WOSB, and the VOSB and the service disabled VOSB. Would you recommend having both of those? Are they kind of separated and have separate set asides, or would one of those in each category kind of cover the business?
so this does come up with many of my clients. So a quick example would be a woman who is a veteran who is also service disabled veteran. Should she apply for the WOSB or the SDVOSB and the VOSB? My answer, based on research and understanding the nature of marketing, right? The nature of marketing and doing business with the federal government. It's already a challenge to do business with the federal government. That we all know. Does having multiple federal certifications give you an edge against other competitors? It can. At the same time, what does your do you have the ability to market all those certifications effectively? If you have a staff of, let's say you have a marketing and sales staff of 5 people, and you can assign one one sales rep or one manager to just manage the opportunities with the WOSB. You can assign another person the responsibilities of managing the opportunities with the VOSB and somebody else for the SDVOSB. Then okay, you have the capability of truly benefiting from your certification. But if you are a solo entrepreneur and you're trying to utilize the certifications to your greatest advantage, I would pick one and utilize your marketing and your efforts as best you can to see what you can secure with that one certification. If it's between the SDVOSB and the VOSB, I would go with the SDVOSB because I see more opportunities for that certification versus the VOSB. In terms of WOSB and SDVOSB, um, as you saw by the numbers, they're fairly the same in terms of spending. Um, what is important, though, is doing the research. Here's a good time to talk about usaspending.gov. Quick example. Had a client or have a client, and I'm not going to mention the specific product or service, but I'll say they were in the food and beverage industry. And they were posed with this question. I have a WOSB, but I can't find any set asides. I can't find any subcontracting opportunities. Can you help me? So when we went on USA Spending, we did the research to see how many times the WOSB certification was utilized when purchasing her beverage product utilizing the specific next code. And we did it over a 5-year period. And the answer was zero. Nobody had utilized the WOSB, none of the contracting officers in any of these federal agencies. Now, they had used the SDVOSB, they had used the 8A, they had used the SDB, they had even used the hub zone, but we couldn't find any sales of her product utilizing the WOSB. That would have been information that she could have learned before she got the certification by doing some basic research on SAM and usaspending.gov. So if you have an opportunity to go after a certification and you have multiple ones, do that research before you do the application. I think that will help you understand where you should focus your energy.
Absolutely. And just to summarize a little bit, the pointed question, you can apply for all of them. There's no rule saying
There's
you
no rule
can't
saying you
have
can't.
all of them.
Right.
But it's really going to be a determining factor of do you have the capacity to utilize them effectively? And it's going to be that that effort versus reward that we've been talking about, right, Thomas?
Yeah, because you're always going to have competition. As I mentioned before, there's the set asides. It's a major tool the contracting officers use to do business with these certifications. But when they put out a set aside, I, I'm just going to pick landscaping again, and they want to use an SDVOSB, there are hundreds of them. So it's never going to be a situation where you're the only one applying, or it's only you and maybe 3 other companies. You're always going to have competition. What is great about the set asides and the certifications is you're limiting that competition. So I would say yes, choose one and pull all your energy into building relationships so that you know which contracting officers and agencies really want to do business with SDVOSBs versus WOSBs versus the 8A and the hub zone.
Fantastic. And then I do see a couple more questions,
Mhm.
but I will answer some of them off screen because I want to provide links and resources for them, or we're going to be going over into the next section. So
Right,
go
because I see
ahead.
we're running close to time, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Applications. So, all right, let's talk about certify.sba.gov. It's been about a year. Time moves so quickly sometimes, but the SBA is essentially responsible for doing all of these certification applications except the SDB, which is self-certifying through SAM. It used to be the VA was responsible for the VOSB and the SDVOSB, and the um, SBA was responsible for all the others. That's all been changed. Certify.sba.gov is the main centralized place where you start the process. And actually, for those who were looking at going and applying for three different ones, they I believe they make the process somewhat easier. Um, it can have hiccups and challenges, and just to say this, if you're definitely committed to going after this and you want some help, Apex Accelerator is this is what we're here for. We're here to help you navigate this process. We're here to help you understand what documents you need if you have questions. We're here to help you with the entire application process. So you don't feel like you're doing all of this by yourself. But yes, certified.sbi.gov is a fairly new site. I think it's much better, and it should be able to walk you through the process. Now we're going to jump into SAM real quick. This is the starting point. This is where everybody who wants to do business with the federal government must register your entity and your own. You must have a personal account, right? That's where it starts. You get your own personal account with SAM, and then once you have your personal account, you register your entity, i.e., your company, into SAM. So this just goes into the eligibility and benefits of registering. Yes, it's free, but it is mandatory if you want to receive federal contracts. Once you register, you'll be given a UEI, unique entity ID, and a cage code. These two codes or identifications is what the government utilizes when doing business with you. The cage code is really important when it comes to the Department of Defense. And of course, the Department of Defense is the by far our biggest federal agency. It encompasses all of the military, along with Defense Logistics Agency. For those who don't know what DLA is, they are the essentially the warehouse for all of the military. So when Travis Air Force Base, which is a base here in Northern California, when they need to resupply, they have a warehouse on base. But when that warehouse runs low, they have to go into DLA to restock. And so every single base, whether it's an Air Force base, an Army base, a Marine base, the Navy, when they all need to restock, they all must go through DLA. Um, just a quick, just FYI, the DLA spends, I believe, $1 billion a month. So that's why it's important to see how you can do business with DoD. All right, and this is just a quick snapshot to show you what link you click on once you have registered yourself into SAM and you're ready to register your own entity, this is the image that you would see to get started. And this is the rest of our team. So I think I'll turn it back over to Amanda. And if
Absolutely.
there's any questions on SAM, I went through that fairly quickly, but um, essentially, SAM is the starting point. It's also the main portal where contracting officers must submit their solicitations.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go ahead and drop a link in chat to get you to the certification portal as well, so you can explore more information about the certifications. But if you do need any further assistance or even just have some questions, please do sign up with us as your local Apex Accelerator. Or if you're outside of our service area, remember we are a nationwide network of services of centers here to provide no cost services to you. So, absolutely a resource you should be utilizing if you're looking to go into government contracting and really find your success. So, we do have a number of other federally focused training events coming up, but due to the timing, I do want to make sure we have any other questions for today. Please enter them into the Q&A section. And thank you so much, Thomas, for this fantastic presentation. It's a lot of information, but I
Mhm.
think the way that you provided it in the very comparison of like benefits, eligibility really helps solidify the understanding, and providing all these resources that they can explore is absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for this presentation, Thomas.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
And I will say the only question we have as of now is to go back to the available trainings. So as I lead this slide up, I do want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. As you exit the presentation, you will be redirected to our feedback survey. It is very brief, and we always appreciate your feedback on these trainings because we really do develop these trainings, webinars, and workshops to help you and your business. And the only way we can know if we could do better for you and your business is if you let us know. So if you have any ideas on topics you'd like to see us present, or maybe different timings, different days you'd like to see us present on, please do let us know through our feedback survey. And on the flip side, if you loved this presentation and want to see more like it, please let us know that as well. We would love to put on more events just like this one, but we need to know if you want to see them. So if you have a moment, that feedback survey is always appreciated as your input is invaluable to the growth of our program. And with that, I would like to say a final thank you all for so much for joining us today. And thank you again, Thomas, for presenting this wonderful content on certifications at the federal level.
I
And with
truly hope
that,
everybody got something from this. Yes.
absolutely. And a friendly reminder, you will be getting the presentation recording as well as the slide deck within 1 week of today. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.